Hey, it's Ed. I'm not doing the video today. We've got Patrick Sam, who's the founder of Rocketly, the agency, and a God Tier Ads customer, and he's contributed this rather lengthy offline conversion tracking walkthrough in great detail. So, how to capture it, what the GCLID actually is, and then how to use automation to bring that data back into your Google Ads account. So, without further ado, over to Patrick.
Hey guys, Patrick Sam here from Rocketly, and welcome to this video where I'll be covering how to set up offline conversion tracking inside of your Google Ads account. Now, offline conversion tracking is a super powerful way to get high quality conversion data into your Google Ads account, especially if you're a lead generation business. But a lot of people never get this set up inside their account because they find it too complicated or they don't really understand how it actually works in practice. So this video is going to teach you everything from understanding what offline conversion tracking is and how it works, and showing you an implementation method that I use that you can copy and paste for your own business or clients. So yeah, let's get started. Okay, so just a quick intro about myself before we kind of dive into the actual video. So I'm Patrick Sam. I'm based in the UK. Got around 4 years of experience in Google Ads, probably closer to 5 now. And I've been in marketing for around 6 years, give or take. I run a small boutique agency called Rocketly, where we manage Google Ads for lead generation businesses. And we also create high converting landing pages for them. As far as this video goes, it will be broken down into 3 different parts. So part 1, we're going to be covering what is offline conversion tracking and how does it work. In part 2, we will be covering how to capture Google Click ID from a tally form, which is a third-party tool, which I will talk a bit about more later on in the video. Then part 3 is automating the offline conversion tracking with Zapier, which is an automation tool. And again, I will expand on that once we reach that part. So yeah, for right now, we will be covering part 1. So let's jump right into the video. What exactly is offline conversion tracking and how does it actually work? So before we actually dive into what offline conversion tracking actually is, let's first discuss what the Google Click Identifier is, or GCLID for short. Now you might have heard the term GCLID thrown around here and there, and you might be wondering, well, what the heck is that? Why is it important and why do I need to know about it? So a Google Click ID is a URL parameter which is appended to the landing page URL. It's a unique string that Google allocates to every click or every ad click. So when someone clicks on an ad from Google search that you've listed, Google will assign a random string to that, and it will just be a bunch of random letters and numbers. You don't have control over what value is assigned here. It's always up to Google. Another thing as well is that Google Click IDs are trackable for up to 90 days. So if I give Google an ID that was assigned 100 days ago, so someone clicked on an ad 100 days ago, and I give the Google Click ID to Google Ads, they won't be able to find and match that for us because it will have expired due to the 90-day limitation. And finally, for Google Click IDs to be appended to the landing page URL, auto tagging must be enabled inside of your Google Ads account. It's not really something you need to worry about because auto tagging is always enabled by default. However, if you would like to check yourself inside of your Google Ads account just to be safe, you can go to admin, account settings, and then if you expand the auto tagging box like shown in the screenshot, you just need to make sure that the box is ticked like that. But again, by default, it's always ticked. So unless someone has been messing inside the account settings, configuration settings, then you shouldn't need to worry about that. So in short, the Google Click ID is what Google uses, and it allows them to attribute the conversion to a specific ad, campaign, ad group, keywords, which led to the click. So if you ever done a bit of diagnosis inside of the Google Ads UI, you can see the conversion count at the ad level campaign level, ad group level, and keyword level. And the way that's determined is by how Google matches the Google Click ID to the customer that clicked on the actual ad. So to give you a better visual idea of Google Click IDs or how they work, here's an example of what a Google Click ID will look like. So this is a URL in the browser URL bar. And as you can see, highlighted in red, we have the parameter name/key, which is Google Click ID, an equal sign, and then in green, we have the parameter value, which is the actual value of the Google Click ID itself. And as you can see, it's just a bunch of random letters and numbers, which doesn't actually make any sense, but it's what Google uses to match in their end. And you don't need to kind of understand it yourself. So for every URL parameter that you see, there will always be a parameter name, which is in red, and a parameter value, which is in green. Okay, so now let's go into what offline conversion tracking actually is. Now that we've covered Google Click IDs, and you should hopefully have a bit of an understanding as to what those are. So offline conversion tracking is the ability to measure conversions that happen outside of your website. For example, the customer journey in a sales funnel that's lower down from, just a lead form submission or like an inquiry, i.e. when they become a close/won deal, when someone comes to visit you, your physical locations, so in-store visits, and then finally phone calls as well. So again, to give you a better visual representation of how offline conversion tracking is beneficial, for standard conversion tracking, so conversions that happen in real time, Google can only see the conversion data for those actions that happen in real time. So for example, for lead generation businesses, normally the first touch point or the first sales funnel step in your sales funnel will be when they fill out an inquiry form. So when an inquiry form is filled in, we would fire a conversion, and then we would then send that conversion data to Google. So that means that Google's scope is that they can see how many leads have come in, and then they can attribute that to the appropriate Google Ads campaigns. But that's essentially where their scope ends. They can't see what happens to the customers after they've become a lead. Were they a qualified lead, for example, and has that lead eventually become a sale? Google doesn't have access to that because that's all happened outside of the scope of this online conversion action. So with offline conversion tracking, you could have the ability to send further or additional data back to Google to show them what happens after a customer becomes a lead. So in this example, this business has a 4-step sales funnel. So they get 100 leads for, let's say, a given month, and 100 of those leads become 50 marketing qualified leads, and those become 25 sales qualified leads, and finally those become 10 sales for the business. So with a really comprehensive setup, you could actually send all of this data to Google. So Google has this data on hand to further optimize your campaigns. And a great thing as well, by having access to this data, you can also get more insights yourself. For example, looking at this graph, we can see that there's a 50% conversion rate from lead to MQL, a 50% conversion rate from MQL to SQL, and then finally a 40% conversion rate for SQL to sales. And if we kind of combine them together, we understand now that there's a lead to sale rate of 10% from when a person becomes a lead to become a sale, which means, we need roughly 10 leads for every sale for this particular lead generation business. Okay, so some considerations that you need to factor in when you are using offline conversion tracking. Now, if you are uploading offline conversion tracking for various stages of your sales funnel, you don't have to upload all of them. You might just want to upload closed deals, but if you are uploading all of them or several of them, make sure that your campaigns only optimize towards one primary conversion action. While we're sending as much data as we can to Google, we only want it to optimize to one type of conversion. We don't want to send multiple mixed signals because it makes optimization just not work as well. So keep the sales funnel step of your choice as the primary conversion action, so it only optimizes towards that. And then for the other sales funnel steps, keep them as secondary, so you can still use the data as observational, so it won't actually impact your or Google's optimizing. Only exception to this would be if you are using custom goals. You can select specific conversions to optimize towards, so you can actually use secondary conversions as primary conversions for that specific campaign. So if you do use custom goals, you can kind of ignore these rules here. But if you're just using the account level settings, i.e. what sets a primary and what sets a secondary as the driver to optimize your campaigns, then make sure you follow these two key bullet points. Another thing to consider is, should you always use the last step of your sales funnel as the primary conversion action? I will say in most cases, the lower the step of your sales funnel, the better it is to use as the primary conversion action. For example, if you're a lead generation business, the highest quality conversion data will be the customers that actually convert to paying customers. So the people that become closed deals. However, there are some things you do need to consider. For example, if you are using smart bidding strategies like target ROAS or target CPA, Google recommends around at least a minimum of 15 conversions per month if you are using those smart bidding strategies. So if you're only getting maybe 1 or 2 closed deals per month, that might or probably won't be sufficient enough to kind of give Google enough conversion data for it to optimize on, because the volume isn't really there. So in that instance, you might want to consider using a sales funnel step that's slightly higher up. Another thing is you need to account for sales funnel steps, like how long it takes for a sales funnel step to be reached. So again, let's talk about closed deals. If closed deals in your business has a longer than average sales cycle of 90 days, then you need to remember that Google Click IDs will expire after 90 days. So let's say it takes 6 months for your business to get an inquiry and then take that inquiry and then finally close that deal. You won't be able to send that data back to Google for when that customer becomes a closed deal, because the Google Click ID will have expired by the time the sale has occurred. So in that case, you need to pick a sales funnel step that takes on average less than 90 days to occur. And then the final consideration is if you are uploading leads through offline conversion tracking instead of using the online conversion tracking method, you may run into an error thrown inside of the Google Ads UI where it says that the conversion date precedes the click date. Now, to fix this, it's quite simple. You just need to offset the conversion time by 1 day or plus 24 hours to the conversion time. Sometimes when you set the conversion time for leads to the exact time that, say, the form was submitted, Google often can't match this in the systems because there's a bit of a time lag, you could say. So by offsetting the time by around 24 hours, I mean, you can play with the number if you want to, but normally one day works just fine. Then you should not get the conversion date precedes click date error. Okay, so to summarize the benefits of offline conversion tracking versus real-time conversions for lead gen in particular. So with offline conversion tracking, we can track the whole customer journey. We can send higher quality data signals because Google will now have access to customers that converted into lower stages of our sales funnel. And we also have proactive data control. We can actually control exactly what customer data we send to Google. Whereas with online conversion tracking, it can be a bit of a mixed bag. So with real-time conversions, we can only track actions that happen on our website in real time. The quality of data is going to be much lower, which means Google has less quality data to optimize towards. And also it's reactive data control. And what I mean by that is, let's say we get 100 leads leads that happen online. Sometimes we might see really poor quality leads that we don't want to send to Google, but it's already happened and it's already been sent to Google. So in order to remove that, we would have to use something called a conversion adjustment. which means we're reacting to bad data that has already been sent to Google. Whereas if we had uploaded it with offline conversion tracking, we could maybe spot that before it's uploaded, and we could kind of remove that bit of data before it gets sent to Google, which makes life a lot easier in the long run. So as good as offline conversion tracking is, there are some downsides to using Google Click ID. So the first point is Safari incognito mode will actually strip out the appended Google Click ID parameter if a user clicks on an ad while within Safari incognito mode. So what happens is before your page loads, the parameter name and parameter value, Google Click ID, will be deleted basically before your page loads. So it will actually be impossible to track that user if they then fill out a form and then submit it. Second point is same as the above, privacy safe browsers. Some also have features to strip out the Google Click ID and other parameters. Not 100% sure if some of these privacy safe browsers have these as the default behavior or if this has to be specifically set in the browser configurations, but I'm pretty positive with browsers like Brave and stuff that this feature is available. So ad blockers are also similar. They might also potentially cause the Google Click ID to not be tracked as well. The last point, which is forms embedded via an iframe. So in the method I'm going to show you on how to set up forms and how to capture Google Click ID and then automate it, I will actually be using an iframe embed because it's the easiest way for people to copy what I'm doing. And also third-party form building tools are a lot better than a lot of the native form builders you get on these different website builders. But the problem with iframes is that sometimes, let's say an iframe is loaded on your landing page and a user navigates to a different page, maybe they browse other pages of your website before coming back. The problem is the URL will change when they're going from page to page versus the original landing page that they went to. So what actually happens is the Google Click ID will get lost in the process. So if they haven't filled out the form before they start browsing, chances are the Google Click ID won't be then pushed into the iframe form. The only way it would be saved is, let's say a person partially fills in the form and then they start browsing. Some forms, like Tally, for example, have a feature to save their pre-filled forms in. So when they come back to the form that was already partially filled in. And what should happen is the Google Click ID should actually be saved in the partially saved form. So even if they do browse and then come back and then fill in the rest of the form later, the Google Click ID should still be tracked. Now, a way to ensure that you always keep Google Click ID, one way is to make sure that your landing page that contains the iframe embed is just a single landing page, which to be honest is what I would normally recommend anyway for anyone running lead generation campaigns. So you just have a single landing page. There's no navigation bar with other links for them to go to. They kind of have all of the information they need to on that one page. That way they won't be browsing to other pages, and then the Google Click ID will always be tracked. Second method, which is a lot more complicated, is to get some custom iframe code. So you would likely have to find some type of web developer or someone very familiar with iframes, but you would essentially want to take the Google Click ID value, store it in a cookie or in local storage, and then make sure that when the iframe loads again, even if they're browsing different pages, once they go back to the page that has the form, the iframe can somehow pull the stored Google Click ID value, and that's somehow then pushed back again into the iframe code. This is getting very complicated and it's not something I'm going to cover, but that is a possibility out there to prevent some of the shortcomings of iframes. Okay, so a typical offline conversion tracking workflow might look like this following graph, which is pulled from a Google support document. So a user will click and arrive on your website by clicking on an ad, say on Google search. They then might fill in a form on your website, which they eventually then become a lead for your business. That form data is then sent to your customer relationship management system or CRM. And then when that user becomes, a closed deal, for example, we might then send that CRM data directly to Google through an automation tool like Zapier. Now, with the method that I'm going to show you, the CRM is going to be replaced with a Google Sheets because CRMs differ from client to client or business to business. And with Google Sheets, it's just a bit easier for everyone to kind of copy and paste that rather than showing you how to implement this through a specific CRM. It's also a lot cheaper because you aren't paying for a CRM, and Google Sheets is free to use. And yeah, that's the method I'll be showing you. Okay, so now you should have a bit of an understanding of Google Click IDs and how offline conversion tracking actually works and why it's beneficial to use. So how do we actually capture a Google Click ID from a Tally form submission? So we've just done part 1 and now we're going to go into part 2 where we'll be going over how to set up a form and how to use that to capture the Google Click ID. So first of all, what is Tally or Tally.so? Tally is just a third-party form tool that I use. The UI is very similar to Notion if you've ever used that task management tool. The free plan is really generous and it's the plan we're actually going to be using in this video. So you don't actually have to pay for it. It's really super simple to set up, and yeah, you don't have to use Tally, by the way, for your setup. If there's a different third-party form tool that you prefer or are already using, you can definitely go ahead and use that as long as it has hidden fields, which I will be explaining more in a second. But yeah, for this example, we will be using Tally. Okay, so what is the secret to capturing the Google Click ID then? So the secret is to use something called a hidden field. So let's say we have a 2-field form where we have an entry for the person's name and then another entry field for their email address. So in this instance, we would add a third field called Google Click ID, which is a hidden field. So this means that this field isn't actually visible on the form itself when the user goes to fill it in. It's loaded, but it's kind of hidden in the background. So the sole purpose of a hidden field is to simply store the Google Click ID value that Google assigns to that ad click for that user. So here's some sample data as to what those values might look like. So the Google Click ID would be populated with the random string that Google generates, and we would have the typical values that a user would fill in the other fields. So Patrick for the name field, and then patrick@gmail.com for the email field. So just to recap and show you again, I remember I showed you the visual representation of what Google Click IDs look like. So the green highlighted value is the value that would get pushed into the hidden fields on a form. Yeah, that's how we track the Google Click ID for a given user, and then that's the same value that we'll use to send back to Google to inform, when a user moves to a different stage of the sales funnel. Okay, so with that quick intro to Tally forms and how to use hidden fields, let's run through an actual setup of creating a Tally form, putting it on your website, and then seeing if the Google Click ID is actually being pulled through. So yeah, let's jump right in. Okay, so here we are on the Tally webpage. Once you've registered, you should be able to jump to the dashboard like so. I'm not going to run through how to register an account. It's pretty straightforward. You just kind of type in your email. And yeah, once you've gotten to the dashboard here, we can now begin and start creating the form that we're going to use and embed on our website. So the first thing we need to do is to click on New Form here in the top right corner. And now we need to give the form a name. So let's call this Offline Conversion Tracking. And you can create a form from scratch, or you can even use a pre-built template here. To keep things simple, I'm just going to create a form from scratch. And then we can now insert a field here. So the first field I'm going to insert is a hidden field, which we already discussed in the PowerPoint presentation. So this is what's going to actually capture the Google Click ID. And you can see it says here, send custom data from your form link to your form submissions via URL query string parameters. So we'll insert this. And inside this box here, you want to type the parameter name, which in this case is Google Click ID. You can also add additional hidden fields here if you want to capture other URL parameter data. But since we're just interested in capturing the Google Click ID for now, we'll keep it as a single hidden field. So once that's done, we can insert another block below. And I'm going to keep this form very basic. So I'm going to insert one short answer, and I call this name. I'll insert an email field below that, and I'll call this email. And finally, I will insert a long answer field, and I will call this message. So if you want to, you can preview the form here, and this is what your form will roughly look like when you embed it to your website. And I'm happy with this now, so I'll click publish in the top right corner here. So when you click publish, you'll get a link that you can go to the form directly. But we are actually more interested in the embed form options down here. There are also some settings that you can play with in the settings tab. So if there's anything you want to change here, then you can, but I'm going to leave it as is. So I'll jump back into the share section, and then I'll go scroll down to the embed form, and then I'll go for the standard option. You can try out the other two if you want to, but for this video, I'm going to stick with standard. And again, you'll have some options here on the left-hand side, like transparent backgrounds. Once you're happy with all of the settings here, click Get Codes. Then you'll be presented with several options to embed your form. For this video, I'm going to go with the iframe option here, which is HTML code, which you copy and paste. This is the option I always go for. So just click the copy to clipboard icon here, and this code is now copied to my clipboard. Okay, so the next step now that we've got our form created and ready to go, the next step is to embed it into our website. Now, this might look a bit different depending on what platform you use. I'm using WordPress, and I'm using a plugin called Breakdance, which is a web builder tool. Again, if you don't know how to embed a form, I would just do a quick Google on whatever platform you are using. Or alternatively, if you have a web developer on hand, I would just give him the codes, the HTML codes that you copied from Tally, and then they should be able to implement that for you. But to give a demonstration of what I would do for my own website, I would simply go to the page that I want to embed the form on. I would click Add. I would add a code block, drag it to the location I want to, and then inside the PHP and HTML codes, I would paste in the Tally iframe data here. It doesn't load because it will only load when I go to the front end. So I'll click Save, and then I will jump to the front end. Okay, and as you can see, the Tally form has loaded. It's got our 3 fields here, although there is technically 4 fields because the Google Click ID field is actually hidden in the back end. Now we want to test if the Google Click ID is actually being picked up by the Tally form. So to do this is really simple. We're just going to append a test Google Click ID to our current URL that we are on here. So what we want to do is add question mark, the parameter name, which is Google Click ID, an equal sign, and then we can add whatever value we want here. So since this is just a test, let's just type in something like test123, press enter, and now the page will reload, the form will reload, and Tally should now be pulling in the test Google Click ID value. So to test this properly, I'm going to fill this in with some data. I'll add my name, I'll add a test email, and then a test message, and then click submit. So that's now being submitted. Now, if I jump back into Tally, if I close this down, jump back to the main dashboard, and as you can see in the offline conversion tracking, there's been one submission, which is the submission that I just submitted right now. If I click on this, and I can see the responses here, I would go to the submission tab to see it in a better way. And as you can see here, here is the data for the submission I just gave. So you can see the time it was submitted in, and in the Google Click ID column here, you can see that the value test123 was pulled through correctly alongside the other field data. So this shows that the form is working correctly and we are good to go to the next step. Okay, so how do we now automate offline conversion tracking with Zapier? So as a quick recap, in part 1, we learned what offline conversion tracking is and how does it work. In part 2, we learned how to capture Google Click ID from Tally and how to embed the Tally form into our own website. And in part 3, we're going to learn how to automate offline conversion tracking with Zapier. Okay, so for anyone that doesn't know what Zapier is, it's an automation tool. It's basically a tool that lets you connect different tools to each other. So for example, we can connect Tally to a Google Sheet using Zapier. We can use Zapier to connect a Google Sheet to another Google Sheet or a Google Sheet to Google Ads. You can connect hundreds of different apps together. There's hundreds of integrations available in Zapier, so you can do a lot more than just offline conversion tracking if you really wanted to. For example, a lot of people use it to automate other aspects of their business. It's super powerful. Now, you don't have to use Zapier. It's the tool of choice for me because it's the most widely adopted, but there are alternatives out there like make.com and various other companies. One downside to Zapier is that unfortunately you will need to use the paid version for this. It's an absolute must. The free version will not give you the ability to set up offline conversion tracking the way that you need to in order to ensure that it works properly. So you do need a paid version. You can use like the cheapest plan available. That should be sufficient. But of course, it depends on how much usage you're going to be using it for. If you're processing hundreds of leads every month, you might need to purchase a slightly more expensive version. But for smaller businesses, normally the lowest or cheapest option available should be sufficient. Now, a cheaper alternative to not using Zapier is you could use the Google Sheets integration in Tally. It is on the free plan in Tally. So essentially when a form is submitted, it will get sent to a Google Sheet. And then if you wanted to, you could use app scripts, which is the codes that you can have on Google Sheets. You could then, transfer that data to a different Google Sheet, for example, a offline conversion tracking Google Sheet, which you can then upload into Google Ads. The problem is you kind of need to make your own custom code for this, and it kind of adds more steps or makes it a lot harder to do, but it definitely is possible, and it would be essentially a free alternative than using Zapier. But because I am using Zapier in this example, I'm not going to be covering how to use this free method through a Google Sheet via Tally. But just wanted to put that out there in case anyone couldn't afford the Zapier plan and they wanted to find a free alternative to setting offline conversion tracking up. So before I dive into the actual Zapier platform, let me just show you the two types of Zaps we're going to be working with. So think of Zaps as just like a workflow. So we're going to create 2 workflows in total within Zapier. So the first one will be for Tally form submissions. So what we're going to do is we're going to set up a Zap where when a Tally form is submitted, it will push the form submission data into our makeshift CRM system in a Google Sheet. So we're essentially connecting 2 apps, the Tally form and then the Google Sheet. Then the second Zap will be sending Google Sheet CRM data to a offline conversion tracking Google Sheet for close/won deals. So when a customer is turned into a paying customer in the CRM Google Sheet, we will then trigger will have a trigger set, which will then send the row data of that customer to another Google Sheet, which is then used to upload directly into Google Ads. So yeah, with that quick introduction to Zapier and these apps we're going to be setting up, let's jump into the actual walkthrough on how to do this yourself. So let's dive in. Okay, so before we jump into Zapier, something we need to do first and foremost is to actually create our offline conversion inside of the Google Ads UI. So if you go to Goals and then Summary under Conversions, where all of your conversion actions are listed, we'll need to create a new conversion action here. So click on this. And then from these 4 options here, we want to go for Import. And you can see here it says offline lead conversions. And then from this drop down here, or these 4 bullets, we want to select CRMs, files, or other data sources. And then track conversions from clicks. And then for the data source, you can connect a data source by clicking this, and it will have an expansion of options here. But for now, we're going to skip this step. After you've done that, click on Continue. Now we need to select a conversion goal. This is just a way to categorize the conversion in the conversions UI that we just went past a minute ago. So here I'm going to select it as converted leads because I'm going to create a closed deal conversion, but you can select it to whatever you want here. For example, you could even select it as a purchase category. But let's go for converted leads. And then for conversion name, I'm going to call it closed deal. Now it's important that you take note of how you've spelt the conversion name here, because when we upload conversions back to Google, we need to reference the conversion name, and the conversion name is case sensitive. So remember what you've typed here as the conversion name. So once that's done, click on Add, and then let's click on Settings here and Conversion Action Settings. So we'll get some additional options for this conversion. I want to keep it as a primary action because I do want Google Ads to optimize towards these closed deal conversions because the quality of data is going to be much higher. For the value, we can keep this as is, use different values for each conversion because I'm going to be specifying the revenue tied to each individual Google Click ID. Now for the count section here, I recommend switching this to 1. And you can see here it says recommended for leads, signups, and other conversions because only the first interaction is valuable. This is going to be completely dependent on your business, but normally for lead generation businesses, when someone goes through your sales funnel and makes a purchase within the 90-day window, normally it's a one-time purchase. So we don't want to accidentally double track the Google Click ID. If for some reason there was some bug in your setup or something you overlooked and you accidentally uploaded the same Google Click ID twice, and if this was set to every, all of those uploads would be counted as a conversion, assuming the Google Click ID was still eligible. So for lead generation business, I normally always recommend setting this to 1. Again, unless there's a specific reason why your business needs to track multiple purchases from a same user that came to your website for the same Google Click ID. Once that's done, I would click Done here and then save and continue. And then click Done again. Now, if I scroll down, you can see that we have the closed deal here that we just created. And you can see here that the conversion source import is website import from clicks, which is Google Click ID. So now this conversion action is ready to be referenced when we now upload Google Click IDs into Google Ads. So we can now jump on to the next step. Okay, so one more step before we jump into creating the actual Zap workflow in Zapier is we now need to set up our CRM Google Sheet.
So Patrick's about to walk you through how to do this with automation. If you want the templates, you can create your own, or if you want ours, well, Patrick's, I'm taking credit for, then you need to be a God Tier Ads customer. Follow the link somewhere around here and you can get them as part of your framework package. Otherwise, you can still follow along with the video. You just have to do the bits manually yourself, as opposed to cheating and using our templates. Patrick's templates. Back to Patrick.
So the first thing is all of the columns here on the left-hand side of the status column. These can be changed to match your tally form. So if you remember, on our tally form, I made 3 fields, including the Google Click ID. So we've got the name field here, email, or column, sorry, name column, email, message, and then there is another column here on the right-hand side for Google Click ID. So if you have more fields or less fields, you can delete these according to that. So for example, if you have a field for phone number, just insert a new field here, and you can just type in phone number. But since I only have 4 fields in my form, I'm going to keep it as what we currently have here. The second thing you need to do is to update your status drop down here. So this status column currently has 4 options. So it's a 2-step sales funnel. So one for inquiry when a customer fills in the form, and one for when a customer becomes a closed deal. So when the business makes a sale. And then we've got 2 statuses here for if the lead is unqualified or if the customer is lost during the sales funnel process. So if you have more than a 2-step sales funnel, I would adjust this here. So for example, if you have a status for marketing qualified lead, you can add this here. Then we might have another one for sales qualified lead. So I can add it like that, click done. And now I've got 2 additional steps, meaning there are 4 in total. But again, to keep things as simple as possible, we're just going to use what we currently have. Okay, so the next bunch of fields on the right hand side here, revenue. So revenue is a column you will fill in when a customer becomes a closed deal. So normally when you get a closed deal, you'll assign a revenue amount to that customer. So you would fill it in here. This is optional. You don't have to send revenue over to Google, but in most cases, if you are optimizing towards closed deals, then you would send revenue. If you're optimizing towards other funnel stages, then maybe you would leave this blank, which is completely fine. So the next column, the upload column, so this will insert a checkbox when this row is ready to be uploaded. So I'll explain this more in detail when I show you some codes that we're going to implement. But essentially, let's say this becomes a closed deal and we have revenue here of like 100. A checkbox here would be inserted, and if we tick this checkbox, that row will then get sent to another Google Sheet, which will then be uploaded to Google Ads. But again, I will explain this in more detail in a bit. As of right now, this row is not eligible because it doesn't meet the requirements so far. And then the next column is Google Click ID. So this will just be the value that's being pulled from Tally. And then the inquiry time, this will be the time and date as when the Tally form was submitted by a customer. And then finally, the upload hash. This is something we're going to be referencing in Zapier. It basically generates a number or a random string, of numbers and letters when we tick the upload box. The reason we have this is because Zapier tends to work a bit better when you reference cells with unique numbers. So yeah, this is what that will do. Okay, so that is all 9 of the columns in this CRM spreadsheet. One more thing is I would keep this sample row here as it is for now. The reason being is once we've got the Zap workflow set up, when it inserts new rows into this spreadsheet, it will always reference the row above it. So if we ended up deleting this whole row here, it would end up taking the formatting of the header row here. And so it would make the spreadsheet look very weird, basically. So keep this test row for now. Once you've got proper data coming in, you can definitely go ahead and delete this. Okay, so now that you've got a rough breakdown of this CRM spreadsheet, the next thing to do is we need to set up some triggers in the spreadsheet. So what you want to do is you want to go to extensions and then you want to click on app script. Okay, so once you click on app script, it will open up a new tab with a bunch of code. You don't need to understand all of this code here. It's already created for you, so it should be working just fine. But a few things that we do need to change is in this CRM config section here. So inside this part of the code, there are two variables that we need to change. So the first one is the closed won status, which is currently set to closed deal. So the name of this string here needs to match the name of the last stage of your sales funnel inside this status column here. So if I had changed this to 1, for example, I would need to jump back into the app script and change this to match that here. But I'm going to keep it as closed deal for now because that's what I want. So we'll change this back. Like so, close that. The second variable is check for revenue. So this is set to true by default, but you can set this to false. What this does is it basically checks for the revenue cell to see if there is a number inserted in here when it's the last stage of the sales funnel. So basically, both of these requirements are required for a text box to be inserted here. If it's set to false, it will ignore the revenue cell. So if you're not interested in uploading revenue to Google Ads, you can just set this to false. And then the final thing we need to do inside the app scripts UI is to create some triggers. So this is super simple to do. All you need to do is to select the setup function here in the dropdown, and then you just want to click run. Since this will likely be the first time you're running this script on this Google Sheet, you will get a pop-up to request permissions to run this, and you'll just need to accept them in order to run the function. As you can see, I got a authorization requirement. Just click on review permissions. You'll get a pop-up, select the Gmail account that you want to run it on, click select all, and then click continue. As you can see in the execution log, the change trigger was created successfully. And if I go to the triggers section here on the left-hand side, you can see there is a trigger created here. You can even look at the settings here. Don't change the settings here because they are set as intended. So click cancel. And now if I just do a quick test, so if I set this row to close deal, and if I add some revenue numbers in here, this upload box should change to a checkbox, like so. And if I delete this upload hash, when I tick the upload box here, an upload hash value will be generated here randomly. Perfect. So now this CRM is ready to go, and we can now jump into Zapier to set up our first Zap workflow. Okay, so here we are in the Zapier dashboard. Again, I'm not going to show you how to register an account. Super straightforward. Just plug in your email and then choose the correct plan for your business or your client's business. So once you're in the dashboard, the first step is to create our first Zap. So we'll click this button here, which will open up a new page. And then let's rename this Zap to, we can call this one Inquiry, and press enter. Perfect. So the first thing we need to do is to create our trigger. So click on trigger and then search for Tally, because that's the application we need to connect to first. Click on Tally, and now you'll get a window pop-up here on the right-hand side. So now we need to select the trigger event. There's only one event here, but that's the one we want to use, which is new submission. So this will trigger when a new Tally form submission is generated. You'll need to connect your account as well. So this will just be the account that you registered with in Tally. And once you've done that, just click continue. Next thing we need to do is to pick the tally form that we made. So if I open this up, I just need to click the offline conversion tracking form like that. And now click continue. And the final step is to test that the trigger is working. So if you click on test trigger, it will now find some records from that tally sheet. If you remember, we did test one form submission earlier. And if we click on this, it will open up that form submission here. And as you can see, it's got the Google Click ID test 123 and then the other field details that I added earlier. So that all looks great. Once you're happy with that, click on continue with selected records. Okay, and now the next step is to add a formatter. So if we click on formatter and in action event, if we select date and time, click continue. And if we select format from here, we'll get a bunch of fields appear here. So the purpose of this section is we want to reformat the tally submission date that's generated from tally. So we need to reformat the date and time to a format that is eligible to upload for Google Ads. Because when we upload the Google Click ID conversion data for Google Ads, the conversion time needs to be formatted in a specific way. So this is what we're going to do right now. So inside this input field here, if you click on the plus symbol, we can insert the values of different fields from tally. So the one we are interested in is the submitted at time here, which you can see 2025-04-20, and then it's got the time after that. So insert that. In the to format, we can choose how to format the date. So if you click on this field here, it will open up some pre-made date formats here from Zapier. But what we want to do is we actually want to create a custom one. So you click on the three dots here on the right hand side and then click on custom. Close this field here. And what we want to type in now is 4 Ys or 4 capital Ys hyphen double capital M hyphen double capital D space double capital H colon double lowercase m colon double lowercase s. So it should take this date here and format it into this new format given here. The next thing we want to change is the time zone. You don't have to change this. So when you pull the date and time from tally, the format of that is in UTC. So this from time zone field here is already set correctly because the tally date and time is from UTC. But if you want to convert the time zone into your local time zone, for example, I'm based in the UK, so I would want to change this to London. So if I click on this, type in London or Europe, click on that. Now this will not only take the date and time from tally and reformat it, it will also adjust the time zone to London or Europe/London. Again, if I click on continue, and if I now click on test step, you can see that it's taken the date and time and it's now formatted it into the eligible format that we need to use for Google Ads. Okay, so now that's done, we need to add one more step. So click on the plus, and now we want to add a Google Sheet. For the action event, we want to set this to create a spreadsheet row. So we can type in create, click on this one here, create spreadsheet row. We'll then want to select the account that has access to the Google Sheets. And once that's connected, click on continue. So the next step is to select the actual Google Sheet and then to select the worksheet within it. So I will fill these out really quick. Okay, so I've selected the correct Google Sheet, which is this CRM spreadsheet here. So once you've done that, you will get a bunch of fields appearing below here. So we can leave this as false. You can ignore this field here. All of these other fields, these are being pulled from the header names of the CRM spreadsheet. So what we now need to do is we need to populate these fields with the various values from tally. So inside the name field here, if I click on the plus symbol, expand on this tally section here, I can insert the name from the name fields, which was Patrick. For the email, I can click on the email field. Do the same with the message. For the status, we want to type in what the first step of our sales funnel is called. So if you remember, it's called inquiry. So if I jump back, I will manually type this in, inquiry. Revenue needs to be blank because that's for when we close the actual deal. The same with upload. Upload we leave blank. Google Click ID we pull from tally. So again, find the Google Click ID field. Inquiry time. So we don't want to use the submitted at time here from tally. We want to use the formatter that we created in step 2. So if you expand that, you can see the output here. Click on that. And then for the upload hash, that should also remain empty as well because that is generated from the app script in the Google Sheet. So again, click on continue. Now we can test the step. So click on test step. And this will now send a test row to the CRM Google Sheet. So that's completed. And now if I jump back, you can see here that it's inserted a new row from the data that we had in tally. So we got our name, email, and message. It's an inquiry. And it's got the Google Click ID here, and then the inquiry time. So that all looks perfect, and that looks like it's functioning as intended. So now that's all the steps done for Zap Workflow 1, and we can now publish this live. So when you click publish, this app will now work for actual form submissions from Tally. So if I was to submit a form again on this page, it will actually trigger the Zap that we just set up, and it should push a new row into the CRM here. Now we will do a full test once we've done the second Zap workflow, but for now I'm just going to publish it and leave it as is. Okay, so now that we've set up the first Zap workflow, the next thing we need to do before we set up the second Zap workflow is to go through the second Google Sheet, which is the offline conversion tracking Google Sheet that we will be uploading directly to Google Ads. So again, there will be a link to copy this somewhere below. Now the first thing you might notice in this Google Sheet, there is a hidden row here on row 1. And these just simply match the headers that are listed in row 4 here. The reason why it's like this is when we connect this to Zapier, Zapier will only look at the heading values of the first row here. Since these are technically the header names that Google will reference here from row 4, we can't force Zapier to use them. So we add another duplicated header row here in row 1. So keep this as is, do not delete this. You can just keep it hidden and out of the way. The second thing we need to do is to set the actual time zone that this Google Sheet will be using. So you can see here there is a parameters time zone equals, and then it's got Europe/London, and then a semicolon. So this should match whatever your time zone is inside of your Google Ads account. If you don't know what the time zone ID is, then what you can do is there's a link here on this second row. If you click on this, it will open a new tab. And here's a list of all of the eligible time zone IDs that you can use. So you just need to find and search the one for your specific location, copy and paste it, and then replace the Europe/London here with the one that you need to replace it with. Don't delete the semicolon on the end here because it might break the Google Sheet. And once that's done, you've now got the time zone sorted and the Google Sheet is ready to go. Now just to briefly explain some of these columns here. So Google Click ID, very self-explanatory. This will be the Google Click ID of the click from the user. Order ID will be left blank because we won't be using this. Conversion name. Conversion name will need to match whatever the conversion name is of the offline conversion that you created inside of the Google Ads UI. This is case sensitive, so make sure you get the case right here. We did call it closed deal here with a capital C and capital D for each of the words. Conversion time, this will be the time of the conversion, depending on what stage you're uploading. So this will be for closed deal in the example we'll be using. The add user data and add personalization, these can be set to either granted or denied. So this should ideally reflect if you are serving customers in the EU. This should respect the user's permissions that they've given in the cookie banner. So ideally, if they've declined your cookies, this should be set to denied. Since that gets a bit complicated and that's a whole another topic, we're just going to be setting these to granted by default. And finally, we have the conversion value and conversion currency columns. So these are optional. You don't have to send conversion value and currency. But since we're sending closed deal data, we will be sending the conversion value, aka the revenue. Conversion currency, this should normally match whatever's in your Google Ads account. But if you are taking payments in various currencies, then you want to set whatever it is, the currency that the customer paid in. If, say, our Google Ads account was set to US dollars and we had a conversion currency of Great British pounds because that customer might have paid in that, then Google will simply do a currency conversion when this conversion is uploaded. And yeah, so that is the offline conversion tracking Google Sheet that we will be using to upload directly to Google Ads. So now let's jump in and create our second and last Zap workflow. Okay, now that our offline conversion tracking Google Sheet is set up and ready to go, we can now create the second Zap workflow. So here I am again in the Zap dashboard. So create a Zap here by clicking this button, new Zap. And now let's rename this to closed deal. Press enter. And now for the trigger, this time around, we want to set it to Google Sheets. Okay, so for the trigger event, we want to set this to new or updated spreadsheet row. There are two options here, one for if you're using a team drive and one if you're using your personal drive. Since I'm using a business account, this will be the one I want to click on. So click on that. Again, select the account that has access to the CRM Google Sheet. And once the account is linked, click on continue. The next thing we need to do is to connect the CRM spreadsheet. So this is the spreadsheet I'm talking about, not the offline conversion tracking one. So this one here. So let's jump back into Zapier and connect to that one. Okay, so once we've connected to the correct spreadsheet, we now want to select the trigger column. So this is the column that's going to trigger this Zap. So for this, we want to set this to the upload hash. So this hash will be generated again when we tick the box that gets inserted here. So when that gets ticked, it will generate this random string here, which Zapier will look out for. So again, jump back to here and then click on continue. So the final step is to test that this trigger is working. So click on test trigger. And it's pulled in some rows here. As you can see, this row data is correct. This is from the second row in our CRM. So that all looks good. Now let's click on continue. Okay, so the next step to add is a filter. So click on filter. Now we want to set what the conditions are. So for the fields, again, we want to select upload hash. And for the condition, we want to choose if it exists. So the reason we set it to this trigger is in the CRM spreadsheet here, in the upload hash cell here for rows, these always remain empty until the upload box is checked. When the upload box is checked, it will generate an upload hash, which means there is a value that exists in this cell. So inside Zapier, it will check for when this cell is updated, and it will check if a value has been created. If it has, then this zap will continue for the further steps ahead. So it's important we add this to make sure that it only runs when a hash actually exists in the CRM spreadsheet for a given row. So once you've done that, click on continue. As you can see here, it says your zap would not have continued for this test data. This is because it was putting the data for this row here as the test data. And as you can see, it's got no upload hash value. If we use the first row as the test data, it would be valid because a upload hash value does actually exist. But I know this will work because I've tested it before, so that should be fine. Now let's click continue again. So the next step is to add a formatter. So we're going to do some date formatting again, but it's going to be slightly different to what we did for the tally date. So again, in action event, we want to select date and time, click on continue. And then for transform, we want to set this to format. And then for the input, this is going to be set to something called zap meta human now. So to insert this, we do double curly bracket, zap underscore meta underscore human underscore now, and then close it with a double curly bracket, and it will insert a date and time like so. So what this does is this will insert the time that the zap has run. So when we set a row to a closed deal, and we ask Zapier to pull that row data from the CRM to our second Google Sheet, which is the offline conversion tracking sheet that we upload directly to Google, it will set the conversion time to the current time that the Zap runs, which is what we want. The problem with this Zap Meta Human Now variable here is the date and time format is incorrect. So again, we need to reformat this. So in the to format field here, we're going to set this to custom again and close this window. And again, we're going to set it to capital Y 4 times, hyphen double D, space HH, colon, lowercase m, lowercase s, which is perfect. Now for the from and to time zone, for this, I'm going to clear it because I don't need to change the time zone. Before the time zone for the Zap MetaHuman Now, this will actually pull the time zone that's listed in your profile on your Zapier account. So my time zone is listed as the London time zone, I believe. So I would just leave all the fields as, unless you want to change it to a different time zone for whatever reason. I'll just leave this as UTC. If I change it to London, it will actually mess up the date and time that the Zap MetaHuman time zone adds. So I'll leave it as is, click continue. And I've already tested this step. I'll retest it one more time. So this is the correct date, and this is the correct time for the current time zone that I'm in. So it is 2:45. So again, this looks great, and it looks like I'm ready to move on to the next step. Okay, so for the final step, we're going to connect another Google Sheet. Okay, so for the action event, we want to set this to create spreadsheet row. So let's type in create spreadsheet row, click on that. Again, select the email that has access to the spreadsheet, then click on continue. Now for this spreadsheet that we want to connect to, it's going to be this spreadsheet here. So the one that we're going to be uploading to Google. So jump in and fill these out. Okay, so once you've connected to the correct spreadsheet, you'll get all of these fields appearing here below. For this time zone, we can just keep this as false. Now for the Google Click ID, we want to pull the values from our CRM spreadsheet. So if I expand on this and click on Google Click ID, order ID can stay blank because we are not using that column. Conversion name here, You can use the conversion name from the status, but I'm just going to manually type it in, so it's closed deal. Again, remember that the conversion name is case sensitive. And then for the conversion time, we want to use the time that we created, or date and time that we created in the formatter. So select the output there. Now for add user data and add personalization, we're just going to type in granted for both in capital letters. For conversion value, we will set this to the revenue from our CRM. And then for the conversion currency, I'm just going to hard code this as USD because we can't see what will always be USD for this example. Click on continue. Now, if I click test step, it will send a new row into the second Google Sheet. So a row was sent. Now, if I check this spreadsheet, you can see here another row was inserted. It's got the Google Click ID, test123, conversion name, conversion time, granted, add user data and permission or personalization. Conversion value is empty because we hadn't actually inserted that here in the CRM, but the conversion currency is there. And that is now good to go. So we can now publish the second Zap workflow. Great. So now that we've got both Zaps up and running, we can now test the whole process from start to finish to ensure that things are working as intended. Okay, so with both of our Zap workflows created, our automated system should be working correctly. But of course, just to be safe, I'm going to run through the whole process from start to finish to see if everything is working as intended. So here I am again on the embedded tally form. I have changed the Google Click ID value here to a different value. So this is more what a Google Click ID would actually look like. Again, it's still just a test value, but I've replaced the test123. So I'm going to fill out this now again with some different values. We'll just go with Bob this time around and change the message. Hi, I am interested in your services. Click on submit. Now if we jump over to the CRM, we should get a row inserted here like that. Bam. So if we change this row to a closed deal and let's assign a value of say 500, the upload box should appear like that. And now if I tick this, it should generate an upload hash value here like that. So now Zapier should pull in that row as a closed deal and insert it into this Google Sheet here. Now for the second Zap that we created, I believe it runs or it checks the Google Sheet every 2 minutes or so, depending on the plan you're on. So don't be worried if you don't see the row get inserted straight away here. Give it a couple of minutes to see if it is functioning correctly. So now let's wait a bit and see if the row gets inserted. And okay, as you can see, the row has come through successfully. So we've got the Google Click ID, conversion name, the time that the Zap run, aka the time that we roughly set the conversion as a closed deal. We've got the add user permissions and personalization. We have the conversion value, and then finally we have the conversion currency. So this row has been formatted correctly, and this row is definitely eligible to be uploaded to Google Ads. So this means that our automated system is indeed working correctly and everything is now working as intended. Okay, so the last and final step to complete the whole offline conversion tracking process is to schedule the Google Sheet to be uploaded around every 24 hours. So we're going to take this Google Sheet here and we're going to make sure it gets uploaded to our Google Ads account. So the first thing you need to do inside of your Google Ads account is to go to Goals and then inside the conversion section, click on Uploads. Then you want to jump to the Schedules tab here and click on the plus sign here. Next, from the select source, we want to select Google Sheets. And you can see here, we will get some instructions. Make sure you've shared your Google Sheet with this really long email address here. So you want to copy this to your dashboard. So click copy. Next, you want to go back to the Google Sheet and you want to click on share. And now you want to paste in the email address into the add people, groups and calendars field here. Click that and you'll get a few additional fields pop up. You can untick notify people and we can just set this to viewer and then click share. You'll get a pop-up like this saying you're trying to share the Google Sheet with a business or an email outside of your organization. That's fine, just click share anyway. And now the Google Sheet should be properly accessible for Google Ads. So the next step is to link or click link an existing Google Sheet. Once you've got the Google Sheet located, click on it and select insert. And now we just need to select the upload frequency. So here I normally set this to every 24 hours, but you can change it to weekly every Monday if you want to. For the time, I normally set this to midnight, but again, you can set it to whatever you want here. Once that's done, you can click save and preview. Okay, and now you can see that the schedule has been saved. Now there are errors being thrown here because the Google Click IDs are not formatted correctly. They were just test Google Click IDs, so that makes sense. But this should now be working as intended. So now every time at midnight, Google will try and upload the offline conversion tracking spreadsheet here. You can also pause this if you want to, or edit the schedule settings, or even remove it if you need to. But I would just leave it as is if you intend to use the actual Google Sheet going forward. And yeah, that basically completes the whole offline conversion tracking process. So just to give you an idea of what this looks like in an actual account, here is an account that uploads multiple Google Sheets actually. And one of them is the Google Click ID sheet that we just went through. So you can see you'll get some errors and you'll get some successful imports. This is completely normal. Don't worry too much about the errors, but you can click on each Google Sheet upload to get a bit more info. And this is what that looks like. So you can see here, we've got the Google Click ID, the conversion name that was being uploaded, and then some other information here. And on the status column here on the right-hand side, you can see it will tell you if some of these Google Click IDs being uploaded are too old, or if some of them have been successful. So these ones that say the clicker's too old, that's because the conversion time, or sorry, the Google Click ID that it's referencing is actually greater than 90 days old. So yeah, if you ever want to do a bit of diagnosis into your uploads, then you can always click on whichever one gets uploaded. So you can click on these messages here to get a little bit of extra info. So yeah, that is the end of the video. You should now hopefully have a good understanding of how offline conversion tracking works, what Google Click IDs are and why they're important in the whole offline conversion tracking system. You should now be able to set up Zapier automation yourself with the 2 Google Sheet templates. And yeah, another reminder is that this is just one way to set up offline conversion tracking. There is no one-size-fits-all solution. There are various setups needed for different clients depending on their business. But this is a very simple way to kind of get started. And yeah, if you watched till the end of the video, thank you very much for watching. And I'll see you guys in another video in the future. Cheers.
Whew, that was a long one. Thanks, Patrick. If you enjoyed this video and you've made it all this way, then please hit the like, subscribe, leave a comment if you've got any questions, or if you just like the video, it helps. So yeah, big thanks to Patrick. If you want the templates that Patrick put together, you've got to be a God Tier Ads customer. Follow the link or Google it, God Tier Ads Framework. Come join us. Grab great stuff like this. Comment, like, subscribe. Cheers.